Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Jose Rivera, and I'm the CEO of CSIA, and I will be your host today. In case you don't know about CSIA, we're a global nonprofit trade association with over 500 members in 35 countries. For system integration members, the CSIA Best Practices Manual and CSIA certification are some of the more popular member benefits, but you will also enjoy a variety of others, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the system integrators' unique needs, business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your system integration program, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps system integrators, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and search engine optimization marketing efforts. Position yourself as a thought leader and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. The good news is that it's actually the best time for you to join CSIA because as of October 1st, companies that join will get the rest of 2021 as well as all of 2022 included in their membership dues and any exchange upgrades or packages. Get all the details at www.controlsys.org/shine. And at this time, I would like to introduce Steve Friedrich. Steve? Steve, you're muted.
All right, I'm getting ready to share my screen. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. For CSIA leadership, Jose, Jill, Lisa, Sandra, thank you so much for helping us get organized and make today possible. And welcome all the CSIA members today, as well as prospective members and guests that are joining. We hope that today's educational, and we hope to have at least a little bit of time at the end for questions. And then you can also reach out to us for questions. Both myself and Tim Ogden, who'll be presenting. We'll also have a guest star, a guest speaker midway through. So we're excited to get started. So what we'll go through today is GE Digital, who we are, then kind of a 35-year evolution of industrial software, so to speak. It seems like that's a long period of time, but that makes me think of how long I've been in this particular industry as we've gone from even industry 3.0 to 4.0. So we'll touch on some of that. Why companies need a cloud strategy, not only you as an integration community, but your customers that typically have started on the IT side of the business and now are trying to figure out how to bring the OT side in, what's necessary and what's not. And that's going to be the feature of what we're going to go through today in the hybrid cloud manufacturing environment. So I'm not talking about hybrid manufacturing being discrete or process. We're talking today about hybrid manufacturing solutions that span on-premises, edge, and cloud. We're also going to touch on sustainability and circularity as far as what we have seen at GE Digital from many customers, either beginning the journey on either or they're deeper into the journey. But all of you have heard about lowering carbon emissions, and we'll talk about wages and how that applies to customers and how we're at least addressing that. And then Tim Ogden will come up and talk about our Integrator program. And then hopefully, like I said, at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So to get started, who is GE? GE Digital is a portion of GE, the larger GE. You can see on the right-hand side, 4 major divisions of GE. On the left, GE Digital, which is where we fall with the manufacturing solutions. And we've been doing these manufacturing solutions in the industry for over 30 years, starting all the way back when I was part of Intellution, small software company that many of you may remember that was acquired by GE over the years. And we're providing solutions in automotive, food and beverage, CPG, water industry, water and wastewater. So if you name it, we're there. So what are we thinking as GE Digital? Our motto is kind of putting industrial data to work and keep the world running. It's amazing to me when I look around my house, not only the customers that we serve, but knowing the customers that we serve, such as Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, the things that my family and I use every day that are touched by GE, makes me excited to work where I am. Very excited to be part of manufacturing, as well as all of you are as well. And what you do in your daily lives helps produce those solutions that allow your friends, neighbors, and family to consume the products that we all do. But our goal is to keep the world running by putting that industrial data to work. And we'll talk quite a bit today on not only putting that to work on premises, but how we utilize the cloud and edge strategies to provide a comprehensive solution to your manufacturing customers. So just a little bit on the industrial software evolution. And I'm not telling a lot of you things that you don't already know as far as the levels. And depending on what aspect you kind of come from, maybe what analyst company that you're talking with, typically they talk from level 0 all the way through level 4. So industrial automation, the control process, PLCs, whether it's continuous or discrete, level 0 through 2. Level 3 is starting to get into manufacturing operations management, or MES, that I'll show you here in a second. Level 4 is more that ERP, the business systems. And this is classically, traditionally what we've seen in the industrial software landscape. So like I said, at the bottom layer, 0, 1, 2, typically automation. Most of you are doing HMI and SCADA controls. You're collecting historical data, you're programming PLCs, producing that automation that has to occur at the factory for production to get out the back door. At the very top, you have the ERP systems, the SAPs of the world, Oracle, whatever ERP your customers are using, that are supposed to be the single source of the truth. And as we all know, there's a lot of data that's trapped in the information silos at the plants inside the four walls in automation that isn't always exposed to the ERP system. So as we look at connectivity to the ERP system, producing quality management, doing point solutions on things such as OEE calculations. Many people talk about MES as Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, right? Not just your traditional, what we would call manufacturing execution systems. How many different production systems have you seen being run in Excel? So, the bridge classically is having manufacturing executions, part of that manufacturing operations management system, help bridge that gap. And what we're seeing in, the community of integrators where you are, especially with CSIA, is the integration community is not just doing traditional PLC controls and HMI SCADA, but moving into that layer of manufacturing execution, maybe not doing a full-blown system, but doing things such as OEE, doing things such as reaching into inventory control, understanding where the raw materials are, and then sending and communicating data to and from that ERP system to have a smoothly run factory, especially with inside the four walls. And now we start adding cloud in this changing environment, and ERP systems are moving to the cloud. MES systems are moving to the cloud. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of automation and controls that may never move to the cloud. I think a lot of times as the brake in your car, if you're comfortable pressing the brake in your car and a signal going to and from the internet, whether you can stop or not, that's typically the dividing line today in what is done on premises with automation on things such as e-stops that have to occur instantaneously. And then we'll talk about what the cloud provides from an optimization and communication perspective today. But this is how the industrial software landscape is having to change to adopt to these new patterns. And this is something that you've all have seen. So as we look at more capabilities that are both on the plant floor and within the cloud, from the sensors all the way to the ERP systems on the traditional view that we just discussed and talked about. And now you're talking about mobility solutions, having information at the right time in the right place, whether it's on an iPad, a screen, a large monitor in a plant. The data that you're being shown to the person that's seeing the data, they may not know whether it's coming from the system on premises in real time, or if it just happened a second ago and is being stored in the cloud in a historian type system, or maybe it's even being stored in some cases on premises or in a central enterprise system for that particular company. But it's also doing the analytics. Everybody talks about big data. A lot of people talk about big data and the storage of it. If you're just storing data, so what? You're not getting any value of it. But when you start putting analytics against it, you start comparing machine to machine. You take some companies that have 200 different machines around the world that do the same function. How does one machine compare to the next? Can you use that data to analyze why is this machine so much more efficient than the other machine in a different state or a different country? So machine learning analytics, what we're talking about. Not to mention, and we'll touch on this quite a bit today, the higher level analysis that you can do with millions of points of data, then taking that, wrapping it up in a particular algorithm and sending it down to the manufacturing floor, either working at the edge or on premises. So we'll go into a good bit more detail on that. On the right-hand side, you see the digital thread. In a lot of the classic case, the digital thread was talking about specifically the left-hand side, that thread from the sensors to the plant. You'll hear a lot of companies, including GE Digital, talking about the digital thread horizontally as you go from the field or the mine all the way to the consumer. So the digital thread is that journey that a particular product has been on as it goes from formulation to being used by that particular consumer. And then the digital DNA of that particular product is everything that happened to it along that journey. That's a tremendous amount of data. And the on-site storage systems today simply can't handle that amount of data and the fidelity that it needs to be analyzed in. So that's a great place on where the cloud system comes in and why these lines are blurring between these three areas that we have talked about already today. And just a little bit more of a graphical view on what I was just talking about on the mobility side, whether you're using an iPhone, whether you're using a traditional monitor, you're using an iPad, you're using other, AWS has Kindle Fire devices as an example. Azure has different devices. So handheld devices. So it's a matter of getting the information to the right person at the right time in the right hands, whether it be the VP or the CEO of a company, or whether it be the operator or someone in maintenance. Are they looking at the right data? So a great example is a wonderful customer we have with Procter & Gamble and how they've embraced this entire strategy. And they're now moving heavily into cloud-based hybrid solutions. And when I say hybrid solutions, we'll explain more in the coming slides on what is a hybrid cloud strategy. But it's on-premises software and cloud software that work in conjunction with one another. So you don't necessarily have one or the other, but the way we're developing products for the industrial marketplace today is that there's capabilities and advantages that are taken of both. So the advantages of on-premises and the footprint that's there, what has to be collected on premises as an example, and then what can happen in the cloud as far as analysis. A lot of this also is long-term data storage. There's millions of points of data that certain companies need to store. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Pfizer, and others also need to store regulatory data for 7 to 10 years. That's a tremendous amount of data at a tremendous cost if they have to do that on premises. In the cloud, you can store that for very little money with a tremendous amount of data. It can be retrieved in a very short period of time. You can also have active data, both at the plant level as well as in the cloud. And we'll go through a bit more on that. But this is the strategy that they've embraced to take traditional manufacturing into the new world using both MES, SCADA, historian, analytics, and then how they're leveraging the cloud for industrial optimization. The other piece that they're doing in particular is making the user, the operator, the center of the environment. But the user can be the vice president. The user can be the process manufacturing engineer. But in this particular case, as we talk about the operator as the user, using mobile devices to get the information to them as they need it. No longer necessarily just in the control tower looking at several different monitors. A lot of companies are doing more with less. So are the alarms, the efficiency, is all that data getting to the operator so they can do the job the best? There's some maintenance functions that the operators now have. So work instructions on how to produce or how to fulfill those particular maintenance obligations that they have on a piece of equipment that they work on. These are all ways that data is being leveraged, again, in one common pane of glass, but looking at a hybrid system across, again, on-premises to cloud. So what is a hybrid cloud strategy? And then we'll get into hybrid cloud solutions that companies such as GE and others are providing today. So in a hybrid cloud strategy, we talked about data storage, right? There's on-premises inside the four walls. You might have a historian system. You might have a SQL-based system, other systems of which data has been stored for years on premises. There's a lot of companies, and we just talked about a couple that are liberating that data into the cloud environment. So storing a much larger set of data for a much longer period of time. We know of some companies that inside the four walls of the plant on their production machines had literally thousands of people hitting those production machines for reporting. So imagine the chaos that that creates when you're relying on those production machines and the industrial computers there on the manufacturing floor to run the operations. However, people that are looking to optimize those operations are hitting them up for reports. How are you doing? How'd you do yesterday? How'd you do the next shift? So it's a matter of getting the data to the right place and then retrieving the data from the right place, whether it be short-term, long-term, things that are critical to operations, stay on premises. And then what about the edge? You know, you hear about on-premises, edge, and cloud, but there's a little bit of a blurred line between on-premises and edge. So how does that figure in? So again, as we take a look at now putting both edge and the cloud into a manufacturing solution strategy, connecting people systems, operating strategies, what we've already talked about classically on the left on premises, everybody's familiar with. We also touched on how you can send the data to the cloud and now do things such as predictive operations analytics. And some of that isn't necessarily just predictive maintenance and things that you've heard before, but can you predict failure? We worked with one company that has over 150 different machines. They were collecting both historian and MES data for many years. It was stored on premises. They ran some charts and they were looking at data on a daily basis, but never used it to leverage and get better and be able to operate the machines better. Once that data was liberated to the cloud and they were able to use analytics to go against that data, they were able to prevent downtime on these particular machines, which, by the way, downtime on these machines costs $250,000 a day. By taking that data, they were able to predict within 3 months. And those of you that are interested in that company, please reach out to me directly and I can give you the YouTube links to where they talk about this. But within 3 months, they're able to predict when a machine is going to have a failure, or in this particular case, the product actually gets cut loose inside the machine. It takes a good bit of downtime to get it restarted. They identified that that particular opportunity saved them $1 million. That was the first use case they used to get data that they already had leveraged in the cloud. They have 150 of those machines. That's a $150 million opportunity from one use case. And that's the power of leveraging the data that many of you have already been setting up and collecting for your customers over the years. But it's helping to predict quality, production throughput, energy efficiency, and we'll talk about sustainability in a little bit, uptime, asset reliability, the health of that particular asset. Then it creates these algorithms like we just talked about with this company, and it sends it down to the edge. And again, there's a little bit of a blurred line between edge and on premises. Typically the edge on what we call it is a very high-speed device that operates very close to that piece of equipment, not necessarily a PLC, but it actually has some intelligence. So it can run real-time data through the analytics to be able to speed up, slow down, increase temperature, decrease temperature, It might be a capping line. It might be a filling machine. And then that real-time data is actually sent to the historian in the cloud again to be able to optimize that over time. So again, it becomes a learning mechanism. And your on-premises systems are still running, doing your traditional systems, collecting the data, making sure that things are being optimized as they go through. Are you able to tell what your OEE is? Are you able to tell why your OEE is not where you need it to be? It's one thing to be able to measure things such as overall equipment effectiveness. It's another thing to be able to do something with that information. So getting into more, and I know this may be an eye chart for some, and we'll have copies of these slides available. But if we look on the left here, connect, collect, store, and monitor. This is traditionally what's been going on within the four walls. Traditionally, what system integrators have been doing. Companies such as GE have been providing solutions for, but it's getting information from the sensors, determining what's happening on the machine at a larger effect on the line, the site, the enterprise. So it's collecting a lot of that data, but it's been this optimization and predictability piece that's kind of been missing. So as we build this out, there's data you're always going to need on premises. Typically, you're going to need 30 to 90 days worth of data because you want to make sure that your operations work flawlessly. It's going to be operators that are running trends, process engineers that are doing particular items. But the remainder of that data can move into longer term or historical storage. If you remember, I talked about the 2,000 people that were hitting and doing reports on that one production server. Now you can get away from that, which means that your production server actually becomes more efficient. The software solutions actually work better and smoother and more reliably. And the reports and data that need to be analyzed can be done using cloud-based analytics. You can also use on-premises based analytics. Both GE and many other companies have the ability to do on-premises analysis as well as cloud analytics. Typically, you're going to create your more macro cloud analytic that is going to be able to optimize that particular machine. As we talked about earlier, get sent down to the edge, and you might have a higher speed, faster analytic that works to refine that as the real-time data is collected and produced and that machine is manufacturing the results. But this is a general layout from site to site. Data may be sent to a traditional enterprise data storage at headquarters, but you're going to see more and more companies that are shifting that to the cloud. So their typical on-prem or their typical company data center is now moving to the cloud. You hear a lot of ERP systems such as SAP moving to the cloud. The IT infrastructure is a tremendous cost that companies are trying to get away with. So again, in this hybrid cloud strategy, you have data that's used for where it's needed for the purpose that it's needed, but you need manufacturing solutions that can span all these different areas to help you better integrate solutions for your customers. The other thing that I think is important, a lot of people talk about, and rightfully so, security. So the data being secure in transit from its data source on premises into the firewall, through the firewall, into the cloud storage. There's a tremendous amount of security that's built into the cloud infrastructure. Obviously, a tremendous amount of security that has to go into the manufacturing solutions that are hybrid manufacturing solutions, utilizing both on-premises and cloud technology to optimize the manufacturing solutions. So typically this goes without saying, but we thought it was important to go over this today on being able to reduce the vulnerabilities, be it on premises, in transit, or in the cloud, because the data is what's most important to companies and typically their secret sauce. And you're creating a lot of that secret sauce for them. So how does this structure play into actual hybrid cloud manufacturing solutions? Typically what you're going to see today is both MES and historian hybrid solutions like we have at GE Digital. So you have a piece that is traditionally, and like I said, we've been providing MES solutions at GE for over 25 years, a historian almost 30 years. So we have a very good on-premises history, but we've been able to, over the last 5 years, create these hybrid manufacturing solutions that optimize what's done on premises, such as data collection. This can be done in a very small footprint. It can be done inside of a service that a lot of cloud companies provide. And we're working with, the three main providers on that. Be it AWS, Azure, and Google in that particular case. Being able to have edge capability. So not only are you collecting data, but also do we have a portion of that software that can run very high speed on a device at the edge that's sitting on that piece of equipment. There's more and more devices that are not connected into PLCs today. There's some sensors that send their data directly to the cloud. There are some immediate controllers that are on OEM equipment that we can also provide solutions, and hybrid solution manufacturing solution customers need to provide. And then the historian data. What needs to be stored locally, what needs to go to the cloud, and is it stored in such a way that it's not sloppy? Just because you're able to store a tremendous amount of data on the cloud doesn't mean that you should not compress. It doesn't mean that you should store every single point. There definitely has to be a strategy, and that's where you come in as integrators on help setting that strategy for the companies you're producing these results for. So one example is MES, especially for small and mid-level manufacturers that aren't going to do a much larger, more comprehensive MES system that's doing track and trace and genealogy and all the different things that a full functioning MES system provides. A lot of these companies don't have IT systems. Again, small to mid-level manufacturers, of which in the United States, really 98% of the manufacturing, believe it or not, occurs at that particular level, even though we have so many large companies. And those are the companies that use an integration community serve every day. But there's very little risk. You can spin these solutions up in the cloud, and you can test pilots. If they don't work out, you spin them back down. Very low risk, very low startup costs. You haven't invested in a tremendous amount of on-premises hardware. And that's the other piece, is that some of these companies do not have an IT group to be able to help support that hardware or software on premises. So if you can provide them a solution that gives them, such as OEE in the cloud, and it helps optimize what they're doing on the manufacturing floor, that can be done in a very fast period of time for a tremendous amount of value. And it adds value to the systems that you're already producing today without a huge steep learning curve. And I know many of you are doing that already. The other piece is closing this loop on analytics. And we talked about that a bit earlier on machine learning and analytics. But the four areas I really wanted to concentrate on here is what happened, why did it happen, what will happen, and then what action would you take? So if you take the example of the company that I gave earlier that was looking to reduce the amount of downtime, what happened? It's easy. There's tear outs, the machine keeps shutting down. Why did it happen? Well, that's looking back at the videotape of that machine's life and saying, what was the point where this happened? And then looking back at the data, in this case, it was over 2 years worth of data, to get a feel for what were all the different parameters and KPIs that changed or drifted during that period that led up to that downtime event. So that leads to why it happened. That data is captured and analyzed. And then now you can take that data that you've created with that analytic, and now you can predict what will happen or when will it happen. And that provides a tremendous amount of value to that consumer. It reduces their waste. It increases their throughput. And by the way, this particular company, not only did they save downtime, but they also found out that the operators were abnormally running those machines a little bit slower, because they knew that at this particular speed, they never had this downtime issue. So not only did they reduce the downtime, but they actually increased the throughput in those particular machines. And then the other piece is what action to take, because it's one thing to say, here's what's going to happen. It's another thing to have that link between the cloud analytics that are going on and saying, here's what's going to happen, here's what we predict, and then an execution system that can actually take care of remedying that problem, stepping an operator through the work instructions that allow them to fix that particular KPI or metric that they're measuring that are going to cause a problem. Just saying, hey, you're going to have a problem, big deal. That doesn't get you too far. The link between those is critical, and that's the link that you provide with your integration strategy for your customers. So closing this out for this particular software strategy, everybody's talking about supply chain. Everybody knows today that there's plenty of barges sitting off the coast of California stuck. Supply chain is a key issue today. Everybody learned that, especially unfortunately well during COVID. But being able to now get your on-premises systems to communicate very clearly, not with just the ERP systems, but all the manufacturing cloud data. There's data that exists in the cloud that's coming from your upstream and downstream suppliers for a particular customer. But it's being able to have more of a dashboard to the enterprise. Can you see your capacity across 200 different plants, 100 different plants, whatever it might be? Can you see that this plant has more capacity? Can you see this one is going to be constrained based upon the supply chain challenges and being able to shift and move? 5 years ago, it was almost impossible for companies to be able to see that. But this is why the manufacturing hybrid solutions are so important, to have the link between those two worlds, to be able to have more agile manufacturing to respond to what's actually happening in real time across a company's or customer supply chain. So again, to kind of close this out with 2 slides, and then we'll go to our guest speaker here for a couple of minutes. So 6 reasons to move to the cloud. Single source of the truth. Even the ERP data that's being stored in the cloud. But as you send all of your manufacturing data from inside the 4 walls up into the cloud, that becomes your single source of the truth. And that's what is being set by a lot of companies that we do business with today. Increased visibility we talked about. Replicating best practices. So if classically your first shift operations are the best, how do you replicate those? If machine in one plant is the best, how do you replicate that across your entire sites with machine learning? The potential for analytics is, unheralded. You can do just about anything you would want to do in the cloud today. Sky's the limit. Being able to reduce your costs, not only in IT and hardware infrastructure spend, but in getting to results faster, and being able to go from site to site with solutions much faster than you ever were able to before, because those systems, those solutions can be updated on the fly through the cloud, not something that has to be done with, back in the day, 3.5-inch floppy disks. Again, not that everybody's doing that, but on a fat client environment inside the plant where you have software loaded, the upgrade experience takes a lot longer. Being able to adopt with cloud strategies increases the amount of time, decreases the amount of time you can go from version to version in upgrades. And then we obviously talked about the security. So how does this work for you to better support your customers' digital transformation? So we could look at all these pieces. We could look at whether it's biting off a piece of MES or manufacturing operations management, MOMS as it's called, and many of you know. But the key here is leveraging the cloud to do what is best in the cloud, leveraging on premises what is best to do on premises, but having manufacturing software solutions that you don't have to create that for as an integration community, that you're using off-the-shelf software that lends itself very well to that particular environment, and bringing new advances and also new potential revenue to you as an integration community. So to talk about that for a minute, we've invited Rice Sullivan, who many of you know. He's spoken many times. He runs A&E engineering out of Greer, South Carolina, and has over 75 different people that work in North and South Carolina. He was a CSIA Integrator member of the year in 2018. He's also proud that he's a certified cloud practitioner, as well as many are within his company. So, Right, let me turn it over to you to talk a little bit about your experience in this hybrid manufacturing solution environment.
Great, Steve. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And I am here just to give the point of view of a CSIA member integrator who's doing a lot of work in this area, as I know a lot of probably the majority of CSIA integrators are doing a lot with cloud. But I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak. I've known Steve Friedrich for over 25 years, and it goes back to his days that he mentioned, his Intellution days, when my company, A&E Engineering, was a brand new company, and we were focused on S88 batch systems. And it's funny because a lot of what we're talking about today is the evolution of those fairly straightforward architectures. You know, back then it was a little easier because you had the plant floor and then you had the layer of servers and things above the plant floor, and then MES really grew out of that. And then you had ERP above that. And, you know, you could always pretty quickly figure out whether, you know, it was always a question of what is real time, and also, you know, and who needs the information, and you could quickly figure out what layer you needed to be in. That was a very comforting, straightforward architecture. You know, Steve and I, Steve's had a huge impact on my own firm's cloud journeys, because we're all trying to understand this rapid evolution. I think everybody on the call, that's why people are on the call, because this area is changing so quickly. And the conversations I've had with Steve Friedrich have been super helpful toward my evolution of understanding this space. And as soon as you think you got your brain around it, either you get a greater understanding quickly or it shifts quickly. So I appreciate that contribution. You know, to me, the cloud and particular the hybrid architectures of cloud and on-prem are the most interesting area of advanced manufacturing today. There's a lot of cool things happening with vision and other devices, but this area is as compelling as anything that I've seen happening in my career. You know, the cloud is not a new story at all, and people have been talking about predictive analytics. It's evolving rapidly, and it's awesome, but that part is not a new story. What's really, to me, new and different is the hybrid architectures, okay? I know everybody on this call is leveraging the cloud in some way to support your customers. But, you know, these new architectures, and this has really come to the fore in a big way in the last couple of years, is this concept of hybrid solutions where you're doing the real-time decisions have to be made in a factory on the plant floor, but you also want to use algorithms that are getting improved rapidly in the cloud. And you want analytics and information to be shared, and you want people to be able to have access all over the world on any device to the analytics information in a secure way that they can. That's all fairly new when it's being done in a factory-centric way and not an IT-centric way. You know, the edge is a really interesting place. To me, a few years ago, the edge was just a place to get to the cloud and was not interesting. Now it's fascinating because basically it's a real-time thing, like a PLC is a real-time thing, but the edge is a real-time thing that has connectivity that is informed by cloud activities. And everything you do in an edge device typically has something to do with cloud. And so that's, you know, it's like now you've got two sets of real-time devices on the plant floor. So it's less of a monolithic architecture, and really fascinating things are being done at the edge. And then, you know, another thing it's made me think of when Steve was talking is that we have to start looking at the plant floor as not just being a factory architecture, but a true IT architecture that, you know, it's just looking at things very differently. These are complex architectures, and they require us as integrators to be able to approach them with a full suite of IT capabilities. You know, the PLC layer to me is not changing that much, and the ERP layer is not changing that much, but the layers in between, or the layer in between in particular, we're seeing customers really re-envision their MES architectures, as well as the pathways for communication between operators and factory managers. Those are changing very rapidly. You know, we need to pay attention to these tectonic shifts. Obviously, we all want to help our customers adapt to them. And I think working with key CSIA partner firms like GE Digital, and you know, it's tremendously valuable for us as CSIA members to hear what a huge company like GE is hearing from multiple customers and multiple segments of the market, and see if it confirms the shifts that we're sensing in our smaller customer base. Thanks so much to Steve and the entire GE Digital team. I appreciate you giving me, allowing me to present the voice of the integrator here. Thanks.
No, thanks, Wright. We appreciate it, and no, I've appreciated our professional relationship along the years, as well as our ties at Clemson University, which has been a little bit more painful lately.
But still, go Tigers.
Yeah, exactly. So to continue on, and thanks again, Wright. Wanted to touch on sustainability and circularity a bit. Just yesterday, I have a friend down the street that works for a large carpet manufacturer here in Georgia. And they said that they had to shut down about 4 hours the other day, and it's coming up now regularly because their carbon emissions were too high. And that's part of how they're scaling back. Well, now it's come into full focus how they've got to be monitoring this to be proactive as opposed to reactive. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And again, I'm just reinforcing a lot of what all of you have seen and systems that you are creating for your customers all the time. But the importance of it is paramount. If you look at this particular chart, sustainability goals are very important to 47% of the companies, important to 30% of the companies. So the vast majority of the CEOs have specific sustainability goals that they're looking to attain, whether it be carbon reduction, whether it be energy reduction, what have you. Those have to occur from the manufacturing floor inside the four walls and then spread to the enterprise. These are systems that you're responsible for in the PLCs and the sensoring, in the power monitoring equipment that goes in. But the key is, what can you do to help them achieve their sustainability goals with the optimization that we talked about in this hybrid cloud strategy? So it's adhering to regulations, right? Plant managers don't want to go to prison for emissions. It's about monitoring the CO2 footprint, reducing costs, optimizing operations. What we see a lot of companies doing in trying to measure these sustainability metrics is actually having those as part of the virtual bill of materials. So that particular product that was produced, how much energy went into it? How much water went into it? How much is the carbon footprint in that one particular product? Because if you can't measure it, you can't reduce it, you can't affect it. We talked about going plant to plant across the enterprise. So how will you know which are your highest offenders, whether it be a line, a piece of equipment, or a manufacturing facility? And then how do you get better? These are all the ways that you can use the data to be able to help these companies with their sustainability metrics. And they have very specific large budgets that are set aside to achieve these. And they all have a goal set. You can go into their annual report and find out when are their goals. Is it for 2025, 2030, 2050? They all have to reach these particular goals. Some companies around the world don't have a choice. It's being dictated. And slowly that's becoming the case here in the United States. So one example is wages, water, air, gas, electric, and steam, being able to produce models. One particular company that we worked with in CPG had very specific goals that they needed to achieve. They were able to achieve those with a payback of 30 to 90 days, right? Not a year, not 2 years, but very quickly. What's interesting is things such as air, that a lot of people go and say, what's the big deal about air? One particular company that left for a long weekend, shut down the operations, everything is completely shut down. When they came back Monday, they found that they had spent $30,000, that's right, $30,000 in energy over the weekend on shutdown operations. Why? Because there were leaks in the air system all over the place, and those compressors continued to come on. And that's just how much energy that was spent. So a tremendous amount of savings can happen in a very short period of time. And then dashboarding those things, being able to forecast your energy usage. There's a lot of companies around the world that have very specific contracts with their energy supplier to be able to not go over peak demand, to be able to stay under that. How can you help your customers forecast that? How can you, again, take plant to plant and take a look at consumption changes? Who's getting better? Who's getting worse? in the dashboards that we talked about earlier. So from sustainability to circularity, and some of you are familiar with the word, the phrase of circular economy or circularity, but it's going to become more and more at the forefront over the next several years. So as you go from a linear economy to a circular economy, and this is very simplified, but you go from take, make, and dispose, traditional manufacturing, you have resources, you produce a product, eventually that product has an end of life, and you also have waste within the factory. In the circular economy, the product that was end of life comes back as raw materials to make something new. I talked about a carpet manufacturer earlier. Interface Carpets is a great example of a company that's circular, where all the product that's thrown away, the carpet that comes out of your house, even hardwood floor, goes back into their system as new raw materials to produce new carpet, to produce new products. It's getting to where the pants that you wear are going to go into tomorrow's carpet. Tomorrow's carpet's going to go into something else that you use in a iRobot, as an example, on how to be able to reproduce that. So the circular economy, in a perfect circular economy, nothing would need to be taken from the earth again. There's enough that comes out one end that's reused coming in the front end. Plastics are being remastered. Different companies like Eastman are being able to take plastics, and they've made pledges to be able to break those down into their molecular components and create new materials out of those and start getting the waste out of the oceans and the environment. So 80% of the world economy should be circular by 2050. And I'll go through some metrics on that real quick. So we don't run out of time. It's all about measuring use, using less, and then reusing. Those are the foundations of a manufacturer's circular goals as they get there. What you will see, however, is that in the circular world, most manufacturers are starting with sustainability. So they hope to be circular someday. They hope to make better use of the resources that they bring in and the resources that they put into the community. Today, they're using sustainability as step one to get there and reducing their cost, hitting their emissions goals that their shareholders are taking light of. But in the future, as consumers become more aware of the product that they're buying on what it's contained in versus what it actually is. So let's take water as an example that comes into a container that's fully circular, that doesn't have any products that are going to go back into the earth. They can actually go back into any manufacturing process. There's consumers that are making those choices now based upon the packaging, not necessarily what's inside the packaging. And that's going to be consistently happening more and more over the next several years. The reason we know that, and again, this is not a wide variety of companies, but 75 different individuals that we interviewed in a voice of the customer from 62 different companies across 8 persona types gave us their views on circularity and where they're going as companies into the circular economy. So, here are just some metrics as we take a look at, $2.7 trillion of additional gross domestic product by 2025 that are available out there. We take a look at just the impact that we can have in manufacturing and their software spend, right? So we take a look at exactly what is this worth to the industry? What is this worth to you as an integration community that can be capitalized upon on helping your customers produce those goals? Here's the key thing. Today, the global economy is less than 10% circular. By 2050, it's 80%. So as we look around corners as a manufacturing software community, and also as a manufacturer being GE, we're looking at what's coming in the next 10, 20, 30 years. This is something you don't necessarily have to be prepared for today, but you should be thinking about it as your customers start thinking about how do you help them in their manufacturing solutions address the challenges of both circularity and sustainability. So I'll come back in a minute, but I want to turn this over now to Tim Ogden, who is our Senior Director of our Partner Ecosystems, and talk a little bit about our integration program that some of you may be familiar with and it may be new to some. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you for a couple of minutes.
All right, thanks. Go ahead and click to the next slide, please. So we've taken you through quite a bit of information, okay, on hybrid manufacturing solutions and the customer benefits. And so one of the things we want to make sure we talk a little bit about is what's the call to action for the systems integrator community. So, how do you anticipate and understand what the business challenges are going to be for your customers? So that could be regulatory, environmental, sustainability, connectivity to the supply chain, quality, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the challenges that we want to put out in front is make sure you have a plan so that you're becoming that trusted advisor to your customer. So don't wait for it to happen. Put a plan together to really drive that. And, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about our program, GE's Solution Provider Program. And, what the program does, like any good program, it provides the tools, the training, the resources, and support to execute on these customer solutions. So as you go through and you have conversations with your vendors, consider how you can help your customer architect that hybrid solution. So you need to manage the data, provide the critical visibility, enable them with the analytics, really to make sustainable changes. And those changes could be locally in a point solution, it could be regionally, or you may have to serve that customer globally. Steve talked a little bit about, understanding why one machine or one plant or one line performs better than the other. And that's our job as systems integrators to really help our customers figure that out. We as GE feel the demand is going to really drive increased opportunity for the SI community, but you have to be able to understand that market to really drive and head down that journey. And it's going to differ quite a bit depending on your experience with level 3 and level 4 solutions. And GE Solution Provider Program is a great way. It's a great resource to help you evolve as an SI and gain more experience. So really have a plan. Like I said, it's develop the knowledge, learn technology, and understand the applications. Now, our program has a strong commercial focus on our partners. And so what that means to us is providing the ongoing communications and the tools necessary to assist you with that strategy and that journey. So it's not about just the tools and the technology and the support. It's really helping you down that path. How do we discover some opportunities inside your 4 walls of your customers and things like that? Much like CSIA, we're committed to professionalism and continued education. So that's a cornerstone of our program. And what we want to do is share our years of experience on how to improve your product knowledge and your industry knowledge. We're committed to you as partners to have a robust set of resources that's really focused on your success. When you succeed, we succeed. So we want to assist you with the marketing and business development strategy. So, how do you put that plan together for hybrid solutions, as an example? We want to assist you with your design review. So maybe it's your first or your second project and you want a second set of eyes. We're there for you. And of course, the technical assistance on the products, on the solutions that you're putting in. So we succeed together. We continue to promote our partners to the industry with a common goal of really uncovering new opportunities that are out there. And first and foremost, SIs are very critical to our long-term success. So as I wrap up here, what I would tell you is I just invite you to give us a call, visit our web, talk to one of our reps out in the field, and let's have a conversation on how we can help you move forward into this new hybrid solution. Back to you, Steve.
All right, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. So I just have a couple of slides to wrap with. And again, thanks for that insight. Just to tell you what I already told you, right? The 6 reasons to move to the cloud. I'm not going to go back through this, but these are the 6 reasons to move. The next piece is, where do I start? Based upon what Tim was just talking about with the integration, all of you as integrators, give us a call. We'll walk you through what we've seen. We'll have you talk to customers, folks such as Wright Sullivan and A&E Engineering on what they've been able to do. But, you know, 3 general value buckets. First, be able to see the data that's already there, right? You can get probably a 20% improvement for your customers simply by helping them visualize the data. Then the next piece comes in the analysis. And maybe it's not a tremendous amount of analysis, right? It might just be doing something as simple as OEE, or being able to give them visibility to their sustainability metrics that we talked about, and then start analyzing, why are you getting better? Why are you getting worse? Start looking at things such as downtime and try to analyze that downtime. And then the third part is being able to go site to site. So as you get this done at one site, go to the next one, start being able to compare plant to plant. Before you know it, not only are you going to have an on-premises solution inside the 4 walls, but you're helping those companies across their multiple plants being able to see their enterprise in the dashboard spanning in this hybrid manufacturing environment. So that's all we had for you today. We appreciate your attention. And I know there's not a tremendous amount of time, Sandra, but I'd like to field some questions that may already be out there. If not, folks can get in touch with myself or Tim, and you know, we're always available to answer your questions. And hopefully, if you're not a partner with us today, you will be tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Steve, Tim, and Riot. I'm going to be closing this. I'm looking at the questions. There was a lot of good exchange on the chat, but I didn't see any questions. Okay. So I really would like to thank you for making this very informative discussion and presentation, and for sponsoring this event. And I would like to remind our members that we are on this weekly information sharing with our members. Take one hour of your week and try to keep updated with the industry and all the good things that are happening. This is what we have on our calendar of events. And if you have the need to contact us, here's our information. If you are not a CSIA member today, we would welcome you to our association. So thank you very much to all, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.